Welcome to the All Things AI podcast. My name is Ishan, and in the 16th episode of the All Things AI podcast, we have Dr. Akash Parvatikar, who's the lead AI scientist at HistoWIZ, a biotechnology company that focuses on automating histopathology with rapid turnaround times for researchers. In addition, he completed his PhD in the computational biology in the joint program between Carnegie Mellon University and the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine. Thank you so much for being here, and it's an honor to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Ishan, and great work that you're doing with the podcast and engaging the community, students, and industry professionals. I think what you're doing is fantastic, and I'm highly honored to be on your podcast here today.
Thank you. And so
Yeah.
it's late in the day, towards the end of working times, around 5 p.m. So how's your day been so far?
Well, it's been good. A lot of meetings throughout the day, and just unwinding. And yeah, going to end my day with this amazing podcast. And yeah, beautiful weather in Miami. Can't complain.
Ah, yeah,
So yeah, it's fantastic.
yeah. But I guess with that being said, we can move into the first portion of today's interview, which is just going to really focus in on your work at HistoWiz. So
Right.
one thing that specifically stands out, I think, in this interview is that in most interviews with biomedical research scientists, for example, that I've spoke in the past, they
Right.
usually run a lab at a university, for example, whereas you work for a company that's working to optimize workflows. So I really want to look into that aspect in this interview. So on a general note, what's the overall goal of HistoWiz and what are you currently working on?
Right. So HistoWiz, it's a histology company where we have a streamlined workflow to digitize tissue blocks, and it could be HND, IF, or IHC. But in addition to that, we also have a pathology map platform, which enables you to look at these slides, annotate them, share with your colleagues, and have fancy AI tools on top of the platform that lets you analyze these images too. So I would say HistoWiz is a biotechnology company which is accelerating pathology discoveries by automating histology and digital pathology solutions. And so my work at HistoWiz as an AI scientist is to build useful tools for our clients who are mostly pharma companies, biotech, and academic institutions, and really enable to help them in their day-to-day activities, whether it is like diagnosing or like drug discovery, or literally to analyze few slides to for their research work.
Yeah. So I think really it's a diverse job, right? Because you get to work with a lot of different aspects, obviously tying back in into histopathology. So
All right.
from a technical perspective, what AI and ML techniques do you use daily or maybe like once a week or on the basis?
Yeah, so I think at HistoWiz, we are committed to producing high quality slides. So one AI tool that we pay a lot of attention to is quality control. And we have invoked quite a few AI tools to develop and detect QC issues onto our slides. And that is inherent to what we do at HistoWiz. But on top of that, we are also building few tools for detecting tumor necrosis, inflammation, just these basic things which the pathologists could use. And again, at HistoWiz, we are not organ specific like few other companies. We have the most diverse data set spanning across different organs and species. So whatever AI I build, it should be scalable across multiple organs.
Yeah. And so I think I really want to look into your job specifically, and what work you do. So I guess starting off, what part of your job do you find to be the most challenging, maybe even from a technical perspective as far as developing AI solutions?
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful question, and I think one most challenging task for me is to identify what AI to build, because I'm in this field of digital pathology, and yes, AI is revolutionizing how we diagnose diseases. But I think at the core level, it is very important to ask as to what AI is the need of the hour, right? Because when detecting like few things like for example breast cancer, detecting invasive breast cancer, it's comparatively easy from a pathologist perspective uh, than detecting pre-invasive. So building AI to detect invasive tissue might be good, but might not be that useful from a doctor's perspective. So identifying what AI to build and how will it help in the current workflow. So I think a lot of thinking has to go. Will it save time or will it increase accuracy? Will it reduce disagreement between the pathologists when it comes to diagnosis? So I think a lot of uh, efforts and work and meetings go on to identify what solution is actually beneficial. So I think that's the most challenging task.
Yeah. And so I think both of the past two answers really were tying in on that. So I just want to build off of that.
Yeah.
What do you think would set apart quality solutions from the rest at HistoWiz? And how do you specifically decide if like a certain one is good or if it isn't?
So to understand your question, like how do we maintain the quality of the algorithms, or
Yeah.
uh,
Or yeah, specifically, let's say you had like maybe like 10 different ones. How would you
yeah.
choose out of those to see which one you would want to use?
Yeah, I think if it's about say detecting QC issues on the slide, we want an algorithm to work well on different organ types, because some of the AI algorithms will be trained on specific organs, and it might not be scalable to other data types, right? So catering to what we at HistoWiz have, we want it, like it doesn't make sense for us to develop an algorithm which is specific to say lung or prostate, and it cannot be used on colon or breast, right? So I think one thing is how well it performs across the diversity of the data set that we have. And it's not just organs, we get data from different species as well. So we are in the preclinical market where most of our data set comes from animal models and less of human. But one thing that we see is how well it does across different data that we have, and of course both quantitatively and qualitatively.
Yeah. And so I think the one part that I was really catching on to was that it's not scalable to all data types or I guess varieties, because that's one of the biggest issues I think with AI, or at least that I've seen or encountered in my own AI research, for example, is that if AI developers look to develop one specific thing, it needs to be generalizable, or else for the users themselves, it becomes tougher, I guess, let's say in terms of cost, for example, if you have to purchase multiple options, or even just in terms of how easy it is to use something because when it gets messy. So I think that's definitely one of the most important aspects of it. And it's interesting
Right.
that you observe that. And
Yeah.
um, next, I want to look into, I guess, concerns in AI. So one of the biggest concerns in AI, in or out of healthcare, is really the building of trustworthy AI technology. Because at the end of the
Right.
day, we want to assure that obviously our AI technology isn't dangerous, but also that at the same time that it's meant to benefit humans, really. So how do you
Sure.
work towards building transparent AI solutions at HistoWiz?
Yeah, so I think we take this aspect quite seriously at HistoWiz. I think there are two directions here. One is we build an AI, and then we progress so much, and then we try to build explainability on top of that. Right, that's one direction. Another direction is from early on, when the system is getting manufactured, we have explainability imbibed into it. So what I mean by that is, like, for example, QC, right? So we do not make a final decision as to if this slide has to pass or fail. We take a rather soft approach where we give prediction probability, and then we divide it into three bins, which is like easy pass, easy fail, and then the confusion area. So we still have like a human intervention where the complex cases is fed to a data quality specialist. So with that aspect, as the data quality specialist is evaluating the difficult cases, he is also producing more training data set as to why this is difficult. So it's more like a cyclical, right? You have the AI help the human technician, and the human technician helps the AI to make it more better. So I think we need to have a system in place that allows that. And also when it comes to performances, yes, I think explainability is a very important factor to consider while trying to build systems which talks about, like, diagnosing cancer. like why, like for example, if you feed in an image, it is very important to tell as to not just why it came to a specific decision, but also where did it pay attention to, like what features did it pay attention to, and does that resonate to the current knowledge that we have for detecting few things, right? For example, if you take a picture of the room, of say a kitchen, and I ask you, right, what is it, and if your AI says it's a kitchen, that's okay. But if an AI says it's kitchen because I'm seeing gas stove here, I'm seeing a refrigerator here, and I'm seeing like bar stool here, and together I call it a kitchen. That's much more explainable, and my trust increases because a fridge could also be in an office room or in in your bedroom as well. But it's the combination of the features put together, which is why we as humans call something as a kitchen versus a bedroom. So I think this holds good even for detecting cancer as well.
Yeah, and I think that analogy was really good at looking at the entire idea
Yeah,
because if we don't know exactly what our AI is even looking for, and if it's just spitting out a random thing that could be right or wrong, I think that's how
yeah,
you get into like creating really dangerous AI that not only won't function properly, but at the same time, I mean, it also means that it'll be a big pain for to fix it. And I guess all around it's a big issue. But I guess with that being said, there has been some movements in sort of regulatory compliances. I think President Biden's executive order in AI back a few months ago was part of that. The EU obviously had their own thing with AI,
yeah,
but I think most of these regulatory bills are pretty diverse in that they don't specifically cater to, or rather generic, because they don't cater to a specific aspect. They're like, we want AI to be good in general, transparent, and things like that. So, in your work at HistoWIZ, have you specifically encountered any such things as like regulatory compliances that you have to follow when developing your tools?
Uh, so we at HistoWiz, we are in the preclinical market again because so we do not have that many regulatory restrictions because we do not deal with human data, like human clinical data. But yes, we are like GLP compliant, which is good lab practice. But that is for the lab workflow, and not really from the technology perspective. And also right now at HistoWiz, we are using just to quality control the slides, and not for any sophisticated things like diagnosing this, or maybe we haven't reached that stage. So probably 1 year down the line we will be looking into those things even at HistoWiz.
Yeah, makes sense. And I think really you were getting at things like data and then preclinical, postclinical. So I think that really provides a perfect segue into our second portion, which is going to be in AI and healthcare in general. So I guess bridging out of digital pathology and just into AI and healthcare and the big intersection between those two. My first question is, what do you think is the best way that we can turbocharge innovation in the area of AI and healthcare? Things like data sharing and institutional collaborations, maybe.
Oh, well, yeah, I think when I talk about digital pathology specifically, how you could sort of turbocharge of using AI in healthcare is A, uh, I don't think we need to get aggressive on implementing AI. First, understand what is the problem. It is like problem first, AI next, it's not like, you are trying to fit in like round pegs in a square hole, right? So identify what is the problem, and AI could be one of the solutions for that problem, like not like the solution. So I always go with this mantra that identify where the problem is, what the problem is, see what has been done so far. Will it actually help the community, help the doctors, because they are the ones who will be using that. Like you and I could develop AI, but it's the clinicians or who will be actually have to write off as to what the diagnosis is, like will it be useful to them. So it's good to turbocharge AI in digital pathology or healthcare at a bigger scale. But I think sit down, identify the problems which you might have thought previously that could never be solved because AI was not a thing previously. But now you have the tools at disposal. So I would say like revisit what problems you had and bring it to the top and see how Gen AI or XAI could actually help you to sort of get to that next stage. And then I think uh, I think if you know exactly what the problem is, you already have the solution.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I think the gist of it was really that really have to think about the problem and then not be aggressive in implementing AI, because you want to make sure that you take it step by step rather than just being
Absolutely.
fast and hasty in this process. So I just want to take a look at maybe a hypothetical scenario. I've done this once or twice in the past where I just
Yeah.
throw a type of question like this out. But what would happen if AI, maybe even histopathology or healthcare in general, like let's say like surgery bot or something is implemented aggressively? What does that mean, and what are the repercussions that we could see?
Can you like rephrase your question? I
Yeah,
didn't.
sure. So what would happen if AI is aggressively implemented?
Yeah. Well, I think if AI is aggressively implemented for histology, again, we like again, AI is not there to replace doctors, replace clinicians. That's for sure. But I think it is also said that, but clinicians who don't use AI might be replaced, right? So AI is, especially in digital pathology, AI is seen as an assistive tool and not as a replacement tool, right? So if it is aggressively implemented, again, it boils down to the fact that, okay, is it actually helping you to diagnose things better? If it does, fantastic. But then, if the patients are getting misdiagnosed, then something is going wrong, and then we might have to revisit as to what went wrong. So that's why like we are treading the path really carefully as to seeing like how could it help, where could it help, and where do we need an expert opinion. And yeah, it's more like it is guiding you for your assistance rather than completely overtaking your cognitive decisions.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, when AI gets implemented, and if it does in the future into areas like healthcare, which is
Yeah,
obviously so important in the sense that you can't mess up in things like healthcare. So I think definitely that's the approach you take, that we really slow down and reconsider and assure that there's like 100% chance that something can succeed, because it's never compatible, or rather it's never as accurate as humans, for example, who've spent years, especially with doctors, I guess, getting
absolutely.
trained for the same thing. But with that being
Yeah,
said, I want to look at a small problem that I faced in my own research that maybe
sure.
like even you could have faced. And so that's really, I guess, looking at data augmentation. And so the reason that I've employed data augmentation techniques in the past was because like when you have certain amounts of data, obviously it isn't that much, especially with publicly available data. For student researchers, for example, because they can't get their access on the biggest data portfolios and sets from universities, for example. But I was thinking that maybe even in the real world, some AI is trained on millions of samples. And I think if you want like to assure that a tool is fully functional, you might even want it to be trained on millions of samples. But I think like for certain conditions, for example, that you're trying to target, such data
Yeah.
might not be available. So my question is, are techniques such as data augmentation viable and reliable for biomedical engineers, or do they really pose a risk to the patient if tools developed on augmented data were employed in the real world?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question because it is more like a chicken and egg problem, right? Like yeah, you have the data, but you don't have an algorithm, but you have an algorithm, but not the diverse data that you need. And then you figure out things around that as to what can be done, and you do data augmentation to sort of like fix the problem. But again, I think a having access to the data is fantastic, but if not, I think having like proof of concept studies on augmented data is good. That will probably lead you to get research papers probably, but I think you should be aware of the fact in the back of your head that, okay, what data set did I use for this, like because as soon as you find it available, find the data like available, I think you should try to run it out, because you never know. It's like you are designing, I don't know, like a self-driving car on like say American roads, and then you just try to think about Indian roads because you might have
Yeah.
like some parameters, and then you augment your American roads to fit Indian roads, but then when you actually test it out on the Indian roads, it might not be the same thing. The environmental conditions might be different, and you might not have even have imagined. So, I would say it's okay to develop a solution which caters to like one specific like problem or from a research perspective. But then I think you should be flexible enough to pivot as and when you get more data available. But it's like that shouldn't like sort of like be a wall for your progress. I think you should still like try to innovate and get what you have.
Yeah.
So
So could we almost think of it as like a last resort? So if you have enough data, obviously real world's the best way to train any sort of AI. But
sure,
so I think really we can think of it as like an alternative, right? I guess in certain occasions.
exactly, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah,
And with that being said,
and also like because when I did my PhD, I worked on pre-invasive breast lesions, and I did not have access to like tons of data. So with whatever I had, which was a very limited data set from Maggie Women's Hospital, we took a slightly different approach, as opposed to deep learning algorithms, where I built my own machine learning framework to work with limited data. And so I think it is also worthwhile to consider those like computer vision techniques, or algorithms out there that actually you have like few papers and like few shot learning, and right, who actually like see how it performs. Like don't directly go towards deep learning, neural nets and all that. See how these basic algorithms perform, and then you build on that. So
sense. And I guess really that I can relate to that example because I've worked with, I think the first ever really AI project that I did was detecting pulmonary hypertension. And the biggest issue that I had was I think I only had about 200 samples, or roughly around
mm,
there. And so with
yeah,
200 samples, you can never get something that's fully like accurate on a high level. And that was one issue
mm,
that I faced. But yeah, with that being said, I really want to look at a third portion of today's interview, which is going to focus on your educational background and really your life as a PhD student. I think that's one of the parts that I've never talked about on my podcast or asked anyone was, even though they've done PhDs in the past, exactly what does this mean? How does that process work? Is it really like figuring out your interest, what aspects of AI you're interested in? So I would just want to take a couple minutes to shed light on that topic. My
sounds
first
good.
question is, how do PhD students typically decide what they want to work on or what their project should focus on?
Yeah, so I think how students typically figure out is, and it's okay to be confused, and it's totally fine. And they do have rotations in some of the, I think in almost all universities, wherein you work with a professor for like 6 weeks, and then you rotate. And yes, you won't be able to rotate with all the professors. You will have your top choices that you want to focus on, and then you pick the professor. You might want to do rotations because you're entirely new to the department and the field, but some people like they would have done like maybe like a research assistantship during bachelor's, or masters, and they will have a fair idea. Okay, this is my niche, like I would want to do like deeper studies in this. So I think it depends, but again, I would say you never know how deep the sea is until you have set foot in that. So yeah, I think like go out there, talk to professors, talk to current PhD students, and not just get an understanding, but also try to do a small project and see if it really interests you. And yeah, I think that's one of the ways I would think.
Yeah. And can I say that doing a PhD is something that I guess it's a time-taking process, but you think it's really
Yeah.
worthwhile in the sense that you not only gain more experience and develop connections, but don't you also get opened up to like new aspects, I guess, of whatever technology you're dealing with in that?
Well, yeah, I think PhD is a fantastic path when you want to, it's a commitment. It's a commitment for like 4 to 5 years, and it's not just about connections, or it's more about okay, what is like one topic that I would like to get as much understanding as possible, and want to like discover something new, like. Make my understanding of that topic better, and also contribute to science. And along the way, all of these happens, like you get the skills to do that. You get trained on certain equipments, you build connections, and you go to conferences, so you might improve your public speaking skills and all. But I think those are all, I would say, branches. But I think the core is your interest and perseverance as to you should be able to sort of pick onto that. Like for example, for me, it was trying to understand the discordance of detecting pre-invasive breast cancer. So I wanted to understand as to not just from an AI perspective, but also from the data perspective as to why does this happen, why are why are so many women misdiagnosed, and what is the complexity, and then how could AI bring in. So uh I think pick that path, make it strong, because everything else will sort of come as you go. So
Yeah, makes sense. And I was really, as you were talking about the perseverance aspect, I was
yeah,
thinking of the 10,000 hour rule. And that's basically what that is if you, it's the idea that if you put 10,000 hours into anything, you become an expert in it. And I was thinking like, obviously in a PhD, when you have your certain niche area that you like to focus on, maybe apply that rule and then see how it goes. Or even, I guess, even if you're not doing a PhD, like if I had a certain interest, for example, that's something that I was considering in the past was spending thousands of hours on it to assure that I am the expert or industry leading person in that. But that's really, I guess,
yeah.
looking into the future. And so I guess through getting a PhD degree, there's certainly a bunch of opportunities that open up. So what opportunities are opened up to you in terms of careers? Because I know that you did a PhD and then transitioned into a career shortly after.
Well, yeah, I think it was a very good timing during my graduation. So, digital pathology, the field I'm in currently, is still an emergent field where there's still a lot of research and proof of concept and things going on. It's not an established field yet. So, also with a degree where I built explainable AI for a specific imaging modality from Joint Carnegie Mellon and Pitt Medical School. I think it did play out really well while seeking for jobs, because AI is definitely a big thing, and if we talk about XAI for computer vision tasks. So I think finding a job was not that difficult for me. But again, it depends on what your PhD is in. So I would say, some person might do PhD in physics, and they could pivot to be working in a financial sector. So
Yeah.
that's up to you, because during your experience as a PhD, you would have learned all those skills. And for industry, it's those skills that matters. Sure, you might have done great research, but for that industry, it might not be relevant. But what is the depth of the skill that you have acquired during your journey? I think that matters a lot. And for me, it was the basic understanding of machine learning and AI. What does XAI mean? How to invoke trustworthiness in the AI systems? And I had explored various facets of building and applying AI for cancer imaging. So I think that's why I was very particular that I would want to continue working in this field.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that I can connect to because when you become an expert and you develop those skills, and I think that's something I'll keep in mind too, because I'm still in high school, long way to go,
Yeah,
undergrad, and then seeing what I want to do after that. But I think really whatever I learn in school right now or later, what I learn in high school will help me in college, and then what I learn there will take me into whatever I want to do after that. So I
absolutely
think that's definitely something that I'll keep in mind as I guess, increase my
true.
drive to learn new techniques, whether it's in AI or in anything that I do in
Yeah,
school. Yeah.
fantastic.
Yes, with that being said, I want to move into the final portion of today's interview, which is really going to be advice for young innovators and people looking to get into AI, or even people like me who are in AI and just want to increase involvement. So, my first question is, how should teens get started with AI research? And I guess from the baseline, really.
Yeah. So I think my short answer is learn the basics. If you want to get into AI research, learn the basics. Like learn the algorithms, learn the mathematics of it, learn how it's developed. Like, do not focus on quickly applying AI and using all these functions, packages, and try to build something really quick. Understand like the basics, understand probability, statistics. You need to have a good understanding to be able to do AI research. So I got that training from Carnegie Mellon, where I had to take the PhD machine learning course from this great person called Tom Mitchell at CMU, and where I used to spend 40 to 50 hours every week just on that course. And I still remember I spent close to like 12 to 15 hours just to understand KNN algorithm, which is quite like, it might seem like quite basic. It's very easy. I could just, use sklearn to, develop that. But what does it mean from a probability perspective, decision function perspective? So I think one advice to me, one advice that I would tell you and others is get that understanding early on, because I think then that creates a strong foundation, right? Uh, Otherwise, if you don't have that, then you could dream of building so many things like fancy models. Of course you will have packages and wrappers and all of that, but if you want to start, know your basics.
Yeah. And I think really you can do everything, but one thing that I remember, a specific quote from a past person that I interviewed was, we're all consumers of technology. Even the people that just like import things are still consumers of technology in a sense. But there's also the people that develop their own technology and they develop the technology that everyone else uses. I think that's something
Exactly.
that really resonates back to this point that we must understand everything that we do. And I guess I'll take this into looking into today's the final question, which really just focuses on your overarching journey as a whole. And so I'd like to ask, what has been the most difficult part of your journey up until this point? And in those difficult times, what did you do to persevere?
Yeah. So I think I graduated during COVID,
Yeah.
and I was in my second year PhD when COVID started. And I think the most difficult journey for me was around that time, where there was like a lot of uncertainty, and during your PhD degree, you won't be able to go to the lab and work. But I think uh, I try to create an opportunity from the situation, wherein so I love traveling, and I'm a social person, love meeting friends and all of that. But then pandemic hit, and I had to be locked down in the house. So I took that as an opportunity to sort of like work even harder and put in those hours to really accelerate research, whatever I could do, and graduate faster. So I would say that yes, you will be facing like a lot of challenges. Don't be shy to ask, to seek for help at the right time. It could be like your parents, your friends, or your advisor. Don't shy away from asking the right questions. And yeah, if you want to fail, I think fail faster. you know you can try things out, but then I don't have like the outcome in your head already. Like, sure, brainstorm, think like these are all the things that might work out. If you want to do it, go for it, but then figure it out. Be open to self-criticism. Okay, this is not what I'm liking, so I think just pivot and focus on other things. So
And I think really that's something that I've used in the past too, the technique of just
yeah.
being open and to asking people for help. It might seem shy, and it did it for the first few times that I did it, I guess really in middle school, towards the end of it.
Mm,
But I think really in high school, one of the things that has been most helpful is just being open, seeking opportunities and things, whether it's
exactly.
in the form of internships or even interviews that I genuinely just generally ask people for every single day. So I think that's something that I'll keep in my mind and certainly know that it works, and it's probably one of the best things that I can do to persevere. But I guess with
Yeah,
that, yeah, that ends off today's interview. Thank you so much for being here. We've been here for a while today, but I think I
no
learned
problem.
so much through this
No,
experience.
thank you, Ishan. Thank you so much. Yeah,
And for
thanks for
anyone
having me here.
and for anyone watching this, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below.